Good morning, everyone. This video is for Music 162. We've been covering mostly, these are the class pieces that we've been working on. I know we've been looking at Alouette, page 93 in the Green Book, America, page 94, and Dynamic Chase, and the 4 exercises on page 97. I know we've talked extensively on Alouette and America, so I wanted to reiterate what we did on Dynamic Chase. At the end of this video, I will play all 3 of the works, so it'll give you something to practice with, and I just want to give you some ideas on how to work on some things. Again, Dynamic Chase, if we look at it, it's on page 96. Some things are pretty interesting, the dynamics and shading. It's one thing to get the notes in time. It's another thing to be able to add dynamics, which means loudness and softness, and the shading, which means types of articulation. So there are crescendos, decrescendos, pianissimos, fortissimos, and staccato marks and legato marks. Those all mean some things. I mean, if a composer takes the time to put that on, that's a particular way of phrasing something, to articulate something. It makes the musical pattern sound more interesting. So I'll look at dynamic chase. The first thing I would do is observe. If you look at the first 2 lines, they're very similar. The only thing that changes in the right hand are the top notes in the last 2 measures of each measure, and then the bottom notes in the last 2. So really, what I want to do is get you to observe pieces before you really start tackling them, so it'll save you a lot of time. So if we look at that, if I learn these 2 measures, I've already learned those 2 measures. And these are very similar. They're just slight differences in patterns. One goes up and down, one goes down and stays. And it goes down even farther. There's an octave. Let me look at those first. So when I look at the articulation, let me turn this so you can see my hand, if that's better for you. Yeah, okay. So it's in 4/4. 4 beats per measure, and a quarter note equals a beat. The first rhythm we encounter is a dotted quarter. A dot means what? Time and a half. It's like overtime pay. So this quarter note will equal a quarter note plus half of a quarter note. So it's a quarter note and a beat, so it's 1.5 beats. So if you were to clap this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that would be the first measure. So if I look at these notes, well, once I figure out what they are, C, D, E flat, C, that would be important. I think the way I would do this is to first clap the rhythm so you have it. So this is the example of the right hand, line 1. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and off, 3, 4. So that would be useful. And if I look at the left-hand part, you can see that that happens on offbeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would break this down. I would learn, this is just my method. Some people do hands together immediately, but I find you can hear and grasp the lines a little bit better when it's clear what each hand is doing. So try to imagine past the piano and just think of it as music. Maybe you've got a little flute line at the top and maybe underneath some accompaniment with some strings if you want. So the top line would sound something like this. If I look at everything, piano, dynamics, that slur means what? To play legato, smooth and connected. The dots mean staccato. And here we have a crescendo marking to a fortissimo. So if I was really paying attention to this, it would sound like this. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, it's very difficult to crescendo. I mean, it's impossible to crescendo on a held note. So you have to use what's around it to make it sound like it's increasing in volume, or at least imagine it so the listener and the player gets a very musical experience. So if I look at the left hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can hear the crescendo, the build up on it. So I would get each hand perfectly on its own, right? So you can do that and then slowly put them together. So when you can do this, then you've got a musical idea. You've made a complete statement. And once you can sort of get that sort of thing done, then I would give you some other ideas on how to practice. Sometimes I don't play things where they're written. I sometimes spread them out an octave apart, the same notes, but an octave. So it's easier for me to hear. It also triggers my imagination to hear more than what's there. So I'm starting to hear orchestrally. So if I do this, it helps me expand my oral sonic sound landscape, and it will really improve your playing. So when you bring it back to where it's written, you'll come at it with a full scope of sound, a big scope sound palette. Okay, now let's go to the bottom line. If I look at things, I mentioned this before about patterns to quick learn things. There's a lot of leaping around, but it's still the same notes. G, B flat, C sharp, D. I'm on the bottom line now. And it's all staccato. And then this pattern happens down an octave lower. So for me, a quick way to learn notes is to figure out the shapes. So if I look at this and instead of going G, B flat, C sharp, D every single time, I know it's that shape and I know it's that shape. In the right hand, I know it's this shape, and I know it's this shape. So when I practice it, I might do just shapes, so I can learn to get my hands in the right position. Now, when you notice how quickly I'm moving, once I play something, watch where my left hand goes when I play the right hand. I'm already set. I'm already set there. So the minute I'm done with it, it's there. And the minute my left hand plays, my right hand moves. So I'm set. So chances of accuracy will increase dramatically when you do that, when you prepare the position. So here with this jumping around, the 8 VA means octave. So if I look at the line, pianissimo with a crescendo on it, repeat, crescendo, up, look at my hands already in position. That might be a good way to practice it. And then, of course, this is a da capo, meaning back to the head, top of the head, da capo. So you would go back to the end and play to the fine. So the roadmap, again, is first line, second line, third line repeated, repeat to repeat, and then back first and second line, and then you're done. Okay, that's it. At the end, like I said, I'm going to play all the 3 pieces we're working on so you can practice with them. 4 exercises. Look at these patterns. Now, at your point in progress, you're hearing it, but sometimes your hand's not doing what your brain says, and that can be a little frustrating. So we do these exercises to clear the signal from brain to hand. So when you look at a pattern, your hand will do it. More often than not, it takes a lot of practice, years of practice, really. But if we look at the pattern, it's eighth notes, and it's all 5 fingers, up a third, down, back, and then stepwise up, and then down a third, up and back, and then stepwise down. Now, I recommended you repeat right here. Don't go to the end here. Just go back and repeat this line. It'll be more bang for your buck. So again, I would practice this hands alone. It would look something like this. And then instead of ending, I would repeat it again so you get a little bit more workout for your fingers. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 times, something like that might be useful. Metronomes, you can all download them. They're free. I have one here that I use quite a bit, and let me just get it so you can see it from the very beginning. So it looks like that. It comes up, and then you just set the tempo what you want and try to stay with it. Sometimes you might need more clicks than notes. In other words, twice as fast. So as you get more proficient, it will be click per click, 1 click per note. And as you get more proficient, it'll be 2 notes per click. And eventually 4 notes per click. Something like that, and your hand will get better. But be patient with it. The slow way is the fast way with most, beautiful things to learn. Artwork, slow is faster. So take your time with that. And then I would recommend doing these again, hands separately and then together. And you can also practice an octave apart and then put it back together so your ear is not confused. Okay, very good on that. So I think that's about all I would need to say. If there are questions, you can chat me up, or when I look at and when we go into our breakout rooms, we can talk about it there. So I want to play these exercise pieces for you, so it gives you something to practice with. Tempo is not necessarily too fast. You can, but there'll be ballpark tempos that would work for you. So the first one I want to look at is Alouette. And this is in 4/4, and it's eighth notes, so we count them 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And this also has an interesting roadmap, DS al fine, to the sign, and the sign looks like a violin F hole there. So this would go from here to the second line here, and you'd play all the way to where it says fine. So again, we have mostly legato. And the first line is really an introduction to the piece, and that's why it isn't repeated. And then it gets into the heart of it, and then a little bit of a solo thing here, and then back here, and then it ends. So it's really A, B, A, if you look at the form with an introduction. Okay, so here I go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So hopefully that's useful. That's a ballpark speed. Eventually you might take it a little faster. But it's allegretto, somewhat fast. So that would be a perfectly acceptable time. What I'm more interested in is that you play it in time all the way through. One little thing on the bottom line there, you have to leap a little bit to an octave. Sometimes it might be useful for you to measure off with the thumb there so you can switch places a lot easier. So this isn't just kind of a random shot in the dark. So an octave is a pretty standard spacing for most hands, and for most piano music, I should say, and for most music in general. So it might be worth you opening up. And I know to this point we've been mostly working with 5-finger exercises and 5-finger hand positions, and we're just starting to get out of it. But an octave is pretty useful. So you could do something like this. Et, la, te. And switch. Watch what my hands do. See, I'm switching to the thumb. I'll do it so you can really see it. And then see, I'm measured off for the octave. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. Okay, let's go to the next one. America. It's in 3, and it has an introduction, and then the melody starts, and this is through all the way. Notice the left hand. There are ties all the way through. There are also rests, but it's big legato singing lines, so big lyrical lines. Let's listen to this. Here's an example. 1 and 2 and 3 and... There's a retard there. One thing to note, when you see a phrase and another phrase, what you can do between those is take a slight little breath. Sometimes it communicates the music better. It wouldn't be like someone speaking without any punctuation or stops or commas. So it's much clearer. And also it gives you a chance to adjust your hand. So it does two things, clarifies the music and also allows you to move. So for instance, and now you can pick your hand up just for a little bit. Now you can lift it for a new phrase. It is the same value. We might shave off a tiny bit, but there's a tiny space, so it feels natural in speech. Okay, good luck with that. Let's look at dynamic chase. So again, we're looking at adding more dynamics to things. Dynamic chase. Mysteriously. So that doesn't really tell you a tempo. It just kind of gives you a feeling. So that's up to you, your musical senses. So here it is. 3, 4. Hopefully you found that useful. Exercises, again, on page 97. I would probably do these hands separately till I really get a handle on it. So the first one would sound like this. But I'd like you to repeat that section again about 3 or 4 times. That would be most useful. And then the left hand would do the same, something similar. And you would repeat from there. And then eventually, as you get them very in your hands, so your brain and your hands coordinate, then you can start to do them hands together. Okay, this video went longer than I wanted to, so happy practicing. If you have questions, I'll see you in class. Thank you very much.